I only went downstairs because my throat was dry. That was all. It was a little after 10, and I was trying not to make noise in my own son's house. After hip surgery, Peter had said, "Mom, stay with us until you're steady." So I did. I folded myself into their home, kept my things in one room, and learned which floorboards groaned when I stepped on them. Then I heard Claire on the patio. "My daughter-in-law. She acts like this is her house," she said. I froze with my hand near the cabinet. Claire sighed. "Peter keeps saying she's recovering, but honestly, how long does recovery last? We need to take the next step before this turns into forever." The next step. Believe me, those words went straight through me. 3 days later, I found a folder in Peter's office with my name on it. Marge, next steps. Inside were my Social Security estimates, retirement papers, notes about my house, and senior placement emails asking what family could do if I refused. Refused? Isn't that something? 66 years old, and suddenly even your own life sounds like something people can negotiate around you. My name is Marjorie, but the people who truly knew me called me Marge. Before Peter's house, I had a life. A paid-off yellow place on Cedar Lane, 2 rose bushes by the porch, books in every room, and a kitchen window that caught the morning sun. Then came surgery. The stairs at Cedar Lane were too much, and my doctors were closer to Peter's neighborhood, so when he said it was temporary, I believed him. Because Peter was my boy, the boy who used to cry at kindergarten drop-off, the boy who once wrote, "You are my safe place," in a Mother's Day card I still kept in my Bible. But lately, that same boy spoke about me like I was furniture. "Mom shouldn't lift that. Mom needs the hall light. Mom forgot her glasses again." Always about me, rarely to me. And Claire had her own quiet ways. If I left my sweater, book, or glasses outside my room, by morning they were in a wicker basket near the garage door. That basket had become the place for my things. No kidding, even my cardigan needed permission to exist. Emma, my 12-year-old granddaughter, used to come into my room after school and ask what I was reading. Then little by little, she stopped. I told myself she was growing up. Now I wonder if someone had taught her my room was a place not to enter. That night after Claire said, "Next step," I went upstairs without water. My hip ached, but honestly, that wasn't what kept me awake. What kept me awake was the truth slowly settling over me. They were not waiting for me to get better. They were waiting for me to disappear. When I found the folder, I had only gone into Peter's office for printer paper. He had told me months ago, "Mom, take whatever you need." The drawer stuck halfway. I reached in to loosen it, and my fingers touched the folder. Marge, next steps. I knew Peter's handwriting. That little hook on the M, seeing it on that folder hurt worse than if Claire had typed it. My first thought was, close it. My second thought was Claire's voice. So I opened it. The first pages were numbers, Social Security, retirement income, insurance, a printout estimating what Cedar Lane might rent for. Then came emails from a senior placement advisor. Behind them was a calendar printout. Thursday, 2:00 p.m. family intake consultation. Family intake. Not Marjorie intake, not resident intake, family. Then I saw Claire's note in blue ink. Ask whether family can initiate placement if resident refuses. Under that, Peter had written one sentence. Maybe if Mom hears it from a professional, she'll accept it. Let me tell you, I read that line until it blurred. I was 66 years old. I had a replaced hip, not a broken mind. I paid my own bills, knew my passwords, managed my own taxes, and remembered every family birthday, even the ones Peter forgot. But there it was. Not because I needed placement. Because they were preparing me to accept one. I closed the folder carefully. No slam, no tears, just one quiet motion, like placing a lid on something that might explode. Then I put it back exactly where I found it. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my mother's quilt. I had cooked on Claire's late work nights. I had done laundry before sunrise. I kept my shampoo in a little bag under the sink so I wouldn't crowd their bathroom shelf. I had made myself smaller and smaller. And still, they were measuring the space I took up. That afternoon, I pulled my fireproof box from under the bed. Inside was the deed to Cedar Lane, my house, my name, clear as daylight. There was also a small investment account my husband Frank had opened before he died. He called it our rainy day bridge, not enough to make anyone rich, but enough to cross from one life into another. I had never hidden it exactly. I had simply stopped mentioning it. Some parts of your life are too precious to hand over to people who don't know how to hold them. Then I called Judith. Judith was an old book club friend who managed 6 small duplexes behind St. Mark's Church for older women who wanted independence without isolation. She answered on the second ring. "Marge, everything okay?" I looked around that borrowed room, the bad chair, the packed little toiletry bag, the life I had politely shrunk into. "Judith," I said, "do you still have a place open behind the church?" She went quiet. Then softly she asked, "What happened?" And for the first time, I told someone the truth. That Saturday, I drove to see her. The duplex was not fancy. No clubhouse, no pond, just a brick end unit behind the church garden with clean sidewalks, a narrow porch, and a kitchen window facing a row of marigolds still holding color in the cold. Judith hugged me hard and said, "Oh, Marge, you look exhausted." Not confused. Not fragile. Exhausted. There is mercy in being named correctly. She had sent the costs 2 nights earlier. I had run the numbers twice. "Can you manage it?" she asked. "I already have," I said. For the first time in months, laughter rose in my chest and surprised me. Someone had assumed I could handle my own life. I signed the papers that afternoon. Not because I was running away. Let me tell you, there is a difference between running away and walking back to yourself. For the next 3 weeks, I planned quietly. Peter and Claire's trip to Savannah for Claire's cousin's wedding had been on the kitchen calendar for months. I knew that weekend would be my window. I called Elaine, my lawyer, the same steady woman who handled things after Frank died. When I told her I was moving, she did not sound surprised. That hurt a little. Then she asked, "Are you safe, Marjorie?" I looked toward the hallway, where my folded sweater sat in that basket by the garage. "Yes," I said, "but I am not staying." Elaine helped secure my accounts, update my paperwork, and arrange a property manager for Cedar Lane. Then I packed. Slowly, carefully, only what was mine. Frank's watch, my sewing tin, my grandmother's skillet, my mother's quilt, 2 mugs, 3 boxes of books, the framed photo of Peter at 8 holding a muddy baseball like he had won the World Series. I packed that picture because I loved him. Not because I wanted to punish him. One afternoon, Claire appeared in my doorway while I was wrapping Frank's watch. "What are you doing?" she asked. My heart jumped into my throat. I lifted the sewing tin, looking for a button. Her eyes moved over the bed, the tissue paper, my hands. "Try not to spread things everywhere," she said. After she left, my hands shook for 10 minutes. The night before they left for Savannah, Claire paused outside my room. "Didn't you have more books in here?" she asked. I looked at the half-empty shelf and felt my pulse jump. "Judith borrowed a few," I said. Claire stared a second too long, then smiled. "That's nice, at least you still have friends." Honestly, the cruelty of that almost made me laugh. But I kept packing. Because leaving does not always mean you stopped loving someone. Sometimes it means you finally stopped abandoning yourself. When Peter and Claire left for Savannah, the house went quiet. For once, the silence did not scare me. It gave me room. Judith came with her nephew's pickup and we made 2 trips. I cleaned the guest room. I wiped the bathroom sink. I left everything better than I found it because that is how I was raised. Before I walked out, I wrote Peter a letter on cream stationery I had saved since Frank's funeral. I told him I loved him. I told him I found the folder. I told him planning my future without speaking to me was not love. At the bottom I wrote, I am 66, Peter, not 96. My house is mine, my money is mine, my mind is mine, my life is mine. I never needed you to manage me, I needed you to see me. I placed the letter under his coffee mug. Then I locked the door, slipped the key through the mail slot, and carried my last box to the car. For 1 second, I stood in the driveway. That house had taken nearly a year from me, not by force, by politeness, by silence, by me convincing myself not to make trouble. Then I drove away. I found out later Peter did not call me first. He called Elaine, my lawyer. The same son who had not asked what I wanted suddenly wanted to know whether my choices could be delayed until a doctor evaluated me. Elaine told me carefully. He asked whether there was any legal way to pause your decisions until your state of mind could be checked. I sat very still. He said that. Not exactly, Elaine said, but that was the meaning. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Concerned about me, I asked, or concerned that I moved before he could stop me. Elaine's voice softened. Marge, your papers are in order, your finances are yours, your home is yours. No one can undo your choice because it surprised them. Believe me, I needed to hear that. When Peter finally called, his voice was tight. I got your letter, he said. I know. Mom, why would you leave like that? I looked around my little duplex. Boxes still lined the wall. My quilt was on the chair. Judith had left soup in the fridge because real love, I've learned, often looks practical. Because if I had asked, I said, you would have tried to stop me. That's not fair. No, I said, planning my future in a folder without me was not fair. He exhaled sharply. You don't know what it's been like here. That almost took my breath. No, Peter, I know exactly what it was like there. I was the one living it. Silence. Then he said we were trying to be prepared. Prepared. That soft word people use when they are building a cage and want you to admire the craftsmanship. Prepared for what? I asked. For me to forget my glasses, for my hip to hurt, for me to become inconvenient. Mom. Love does not make secret files, I said. Love does not write. Maybe if Mom hears it from a professional, she'll accept it. His voice broke. I was scared. So was I said. The difference is you were scared of caring for me. I was scared of being erased by my own child. He went silent. Then he whispered, Claire feels awful. I am not discussing Claire's feelings. She didn't mind. Yes, she did. People often feel awful when the person they were discussing finally hears them. Another silence. Then Peter said softer, I didn't know you were unhappy. I almost closed my eyes under the weight of that word. Peter, I was not unhappy. I was invisible. There is a difference. He had no answer. And for the first time, I did not rescue him from his own discomfort. After a while, he asked, Can I come see you? Yes, I said, when you are ready to see me, not manage me, not fix me, see me. I should have paid more attention, he said. Yes, I told him, but you can start now. I thought the worst was over. Then 2 days later, someone knocked on my door. Not Peter. Not Judith. It was Emma. My granddaughter stood there with her backpack on one shoulder and her coat too thin for the cold. Her cheeks were red, and in her hand was a phone. Grandma, she said, Dad drove me. He said I could decide whether to show you this myself. She stepped inside, looked around, and whispered, This place feels like you. Ah, let me tell you, I had held myself together through the folder, the letter, the call, all of it, but that nearly did me in. Then Emma held out the phone. It was a voicemail Claire had left for the placement advisor before I moved. Claire's voice came through small and sharp. Once Marjorie agrees to the consultation, Peter thinks she'll calm down, but if she refuses, we need to know what the family can do. Not admission. Not yet. Just a first step. Somehow that made it worse. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Grandma, she asked, were they trying to send you away? That question almost broke me. Because a child had been carrying an adult truth, and nobody had thought what it might do to her. I made tea with too much honey, because that is what grandmothers do when they don't know how to fix something. Emma stared into her cup. I didn't talk to you much at the house, she said. You were 12, I said. That's practically a full-time job. She gave a tiny laugh. I thought Mom didn't want me bothering you. There it was. Another little silence someone had taught her. I covered her hand with mine. You never bothered me, I said, not once. Peter knocked a few minutes later. This time I opened the door. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, just humbled, like a man finally seeing the wreckage after the storm. I didn't know about the voicemail, he said, but I knew we were talking about it. I knew the folder existed, and I let myself pretend silence was the same thing as innocence. Yes, I said, you did. His eyes filled. I'm sorry, Mom. I believe you, I said, but sorry does not move us backward. It only gives us a place to start from. He cried quietly. And I let him. Because for once, I did not comfort him first. Weeks passed. Peter came on Sundays, sometimes alone, sometimes with Emma. Claire did not come right away, and honestly, that was fine. Some apologies need to become behavior before they deserve an audience. In February, Claire sent a letter. I read it twice. It was not perfect. It still explained too much. But near the end, she wrote, I made your independence feel like a threat because I was afraid of losing control. That was the first sentence from Claire that did not try to make me smaller. I wrote back only once. I am glad you are beginning to understand, but understanding is not repair. Do not come to my door until your apology has become behavior. I did not forgive her that day. But I believed maybe, for the first time, she had told the truth. Spring came slowly. Emma and I baked oatmeal cookies. She borrowed books. She learned how to sew a button, and this time the next week she came back. The first thing I planted on my porch was basil, not because it was practical, though it was, but because every time I touched the leaves, the whole porch smelled alive. Isn't that something? Some things survive by going quiet for a season. One morning, I sat by my kitchen window with coffee I had made for myself. No one sighed. No one moved my cup. No one measured the space I took up. My house on Cedar Lane was still mine. My money was mine. My mind was mine. And finally, my life was mine too. Peter still had work to do. Claire did too. Maybe our family would heal completely. Maybe it would not. But I no longer needed anyone's understanding to give myself permission to live. At 66 years old, I was learning something I should have known all along. A woman does not become invisible because people stop seeing her. She becomes invisible when she stops standing in her own light. And I was done standing in the dark.